Hello, wonderful soul, and welcome to this video where I'm going to give you tips on how to connect to your inner child. Now, first things first, we all have an inner child because we were once children, and now we're grown adults still coming from a place of our inner child. And oftentimes, this looks like when we have an emotion or we're being triggered in a space that just doesn't feel good for us. That's when we can really get into identifying where our inner child is still living. And that's going to be the very first step, is pay attention to your triggers so that you can go ahead and sniff around and figure out where and what does my inner child want and need. First thing, pay attention to your triggers. Your triggers are going to be the holy grail. And when I say holy grail, I'm talking about it's going to be the gateway for you to contact and go deeper within yourself. Oftentimes, whenever we are triggered, instead of connecting with the trigger, we tend to go outside of ourselves or inside of ourselves, meaning we try really hard to suppress and bypass this trigger. We may feel that we have expressed this trigger all the way through, and the reality is some of us just don't know how to deal with our feelings. We have it, we don't like it, and then we don't know what to do with it. And so this is where inner child work is going to come in. There's been so many experiences that we've had in our lives that has gotten us to where we are today. And if you are someone who is desiring to go deeper and who is purposeful in choosing to grow in this journey and this half of your life, then addressing our past is going to be one of the biggest things. Now, I want to also preface this by saying you don't have to have had some sort of massive trauma for you to do this work. The reason we go and tap into our inner child is because we all have an emotion. We all get triggered. And when we don't feel good or when we don't feel supported, there's an inner child inside of us that's throwing a temper tantrum. So when you first pay attention to your emotions, the mindset you want to have is that the emotions of that, let me pause right there. The emotions that I have that make me feel triggered right now are emotions that are trying to show me a lesson. You see, our emotions are the professors of life, and they are here to teach us something about us. Oftentimes, our emotions are never really about other people. That's how we've been trained to believe. However, when you take full responsibility, your emotion is about you. And the other person or someone else may have triggered that emotion, but really what they did was they highlighted an area for growth inside of you. So now that you've got your area of growth highlighted, tapping into your inner child, this child that is asking for your attention, that is asking for you to pay attention and see them, this is the best place for you to go. So if the first step is pay attention to your triggered emotions, then the second step is acknowledgement. Acknowledge this child. So here's what I like to do. I always like to say, get into a space where you know you're not going to be interrupted. This is an introspective and a reflective process, meaning that you don't want TVs on or anything that's going to distract you from going inside of yourself. And also, you're going to want to be gentle with yourself because you may not get it the first time, and it's okay. The more you practice, the more this process becomes a little bit better for you in the end, okay? So get into a comfortable space where you know you're not going to be interrupted. Gather pen, gather paper. Whether or not you keep a journal will be really important for this process, but you don't necessarily have to have a journal, okay? Just have something to write with, because you're going to want to write down the stream of thoughts and the ideas that are coming forth right now in order to allow you to have your own inner awakening and healing, okay? So now that I've said that, acknowledgement. Acknowledge this child, right? So take that trigger. First, you're paying attention to the trigger, paying attention to the problem that just occurred that's made you like so triggered. Now you're going to imagine this trigger like a little kid. And I want you to imagine this kid is sitting across from you, sitting next to you, maybe standing next to you or near you, some kind of way. It doesn't matter where they are. Just imagine this triggered emotion as a child. And just like a child, you can ask this child questions. And the key here is to have compassion. Ask questions that are gentle, not judgmental. Questions that allow this child to be as open and as free in expression as they want to. So whatever this child's answer is, do not judge this child. Do not chastise this child. Do not go, well, that doesn't make sense, so that must not be it. Don't dismiss this child. Just literally acknowledge this child by listening to the child, right? And that's step number 3. Listen. Once you've acknowledged that this child is now this triggered emotion, you want to now listen to the child, and you want to ask this child some questions. And the very first question you want to ask this child is, hey, how are you really feeling right now? And let the child come back to you with an answer. Maybe it's different than how you felt, or maybe it's the same. There's no judgment. Maybe the child just simply doesn't know, and that's okay too. Maybe the child shows an emotion that's coming out of them like a behavior with tears or laughter. Just let yourself feel and be with this child as they express themselves. And so then ask the child, hey, how old are you? And see what the child says. For some people, you might get a number that pops up in your head, and it may be 4 or 10 or 11. And it doesn't have to make sense. Just allow that age to pop up for you, however it's going to pop up. And you can take it a step further and get a bit more of a description of this child. You know, maybe you can see this child in your inner eye. Maybe you can see what they look like, what they sound like. Maybe they look like you. Maybe they look different. Maybe their gender's different. Maybe they're wearing clothes that you've never worn before. It doesn't matter how they show up to you. They're showing up to you because that's just how your imagination is creating the picture in your mind. So asking the question, how old are you and what do you look like? Right? And now you want to ask some deeper questions here. I want you to ask this child, what is it that you need to tell me? What is it that you need to tell me? And this one can feel a little bit tricky for some of you who may struggle with introspection and staying in introspection for a longer period of time. Especially if you're someone who's had a history, which is a lot of us and pretty much most of us, who's had a history of suppressing emotions and not sitting with the emotion, this can sometimes feel a little uncomfortable. And I want you to just breathe through this process and allow yourself to commit to being curious about this child, even if there's parts of you that are flaring up that's going, I don't know if I can do this, or this sounds stupid, right? Pushing the judgment off to the side and choosing to show up curious. And be curious about, what does this child want to tell me? What do they need to tell me? And just wait for the answer. You might have a thought that pops up. You might have a memory that pops up or images that flash across your mind's eye. You might start to see colors, or it doesn't need to make sense again. This is so key, and you'll hear me say this again throughout this video. It doesn't need to make sense. You're talking to your subconscious right now. Subconscious doesn't always make sense to our conscious mind, and that's okay too. All right? So now that you've asked this kid, what do they want to teach you, or what message they want to share with you, now you want to ask them one very profound question. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? Now, the reason why this question is so profound is because you're gathering actions. You're gathering action steps that might be really important for you to take into your life as you manage these triggers, right? So you may hear, I need you to spend more time with me. I need you to stop letting people walk all over you. I need you to keep me safe. I need you to play with me. Whatever the case may be, right? Your child is going to give you your own unique answer to that question. What is it that I can do to support you? What can I do to help you? What can I do for you? And these questions will just allow you to dialogue with this child. And then once you've listened to the child as step number 3, I now want you to move to step number 4. Step number 4 is appreciation and love. So now that you've stepped into this space, you want to seal the container back up with some appreciation. And the appreciation looks like saying to this child, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for sharing with me. Thank you for answering these questions. Thank you for speaking to me. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Thank you for being you. Thank you for whatever, all the things that you want to say. And just spend 1 minute, approximately 60 seconds, of sincere and authentic gratitude for this child. Because how often are you appreciating yourself? How often are you appreciating your emotions? How often are you appreciating the inner child that's saying, look at me, pay attention? How often? Not often enough, right? And then just send love to the child. I love you. I love you so much. I love you. And just say that again for 60 seconds. You'll probably feel emotional at this point. You might feel tingles crawl over your body if you're really sending and saying that to the child. You may cry. Some people cry. Some people laugh. It doesn't matter what you experience. Some people don't do any of those things or feel any of those things, and that's totally fine too, right? But what we're doing is allowing your heart to be wide open for this experience. And coming from the curiosity consciousness, you get to be also curious about what it looks like and what it feels like to show appreciation and love for this inner child, this thing that was once triggering you. Now you get to show love and appreciation for. Right? This moves you from this inflated ego and judgment space to this, the part of you that's trying to integrate the whole parts of you. So it's okay to be triggered. It's okay to be angry, sad, scared, mad, whatever. It's okay to be any of those emotions. There will never be an opportunity in life for those emotions to ever go away. I really want you to hear that, right? We live in a culture that tells us that we're so blocked and we're so energetically toxic. And the reality is that's so not true. That's so not true. There's nothing wrong with you because you're a person that has a range of emotions. Now, your job is to figure out how to bring that emotion into a space where it can be healthy and supportive for you. And this is one way to do that. All right, so I hope that this video was super supportive for you, and good luck connecting with your inner child. Peace.